Hey everybody, I hope everybody's having a good day. I'm here with another book review. I am reviewing Sarah Vowell's Assassination Vacation as promised in my last book haul that I just recently filmed. This book, what can I say about this book? If you are a history major or you just like history in general, I would recommend picking up this book, especially if you like American history. And let's make that even narrower. Dark American history, because this book follows the assassinations of 3 American presidents, Abraham Lincoln, McKinley, and Garfield. Now, yes, 2/3 of this very small book is about Abraham Lincoln because he was, the first presidential assassination, and he's one of the most famous of them. And the other 2, she does go into some really intricate things with it, but not as much as in depth with Lincoln. Now, if you're someone who enjoys history, I would say that a lot of history-minded people like to go visit historical places of importance, no matter what actually happened there. If you're interested in the event, you'll go. And something that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge is the fact that we are obsessed as a culture with death. We do. We are obsessed with it, okay? Especially a death of a high importance. Because that's when we get a chance to celebrate the life that somebody had. We don't celebrate it while they're alive, we celebrate it when they're gone. And we as a society are like that. And Sarah Vowell brings that out in this book by taking a trip based solely off the assassinations of these presidents. And when I mean that, she visits all the places associated at all with the assassination. So Abraham Lincoln, she goes to Ford's Theater, where he was actually assassinated, the Pinkerton House across the street, where he actually died. She follows the escape route of John Wilkes Booth all the way to Dr. Mudd's house, all the way to Dr. Mudd's prison, where he was imprisoned for being for helping Booth and basically being an ally. She also goes to the site of the hangings of all the conspirators and the place where the barn burnt down that Booth died in. Apparently, if you're into conspiracy theories, we died there. Anyway, she also goes to his home in Springfield, Illinois, where he lived his family and gained the presidency there. The train station, the last train station he left, which is called the Depot, apparently, and that's where he left Springfield for the last time to go to his presidency, and he would not return to Springfield until he died. It goes to his tomb. So she goes to all these places associated with essentially his death, not just his presidency, but his death. And I have been to Ford's Theater, and to go there and to see it is one of the most crazy things. It's, as a history major, as somebody who loves history, it is so hard to describe standing in the same place where somebody you have studied and revered and you think you know everything about their life has stood. It's a very huge moment of realization and humility and humanism. You feel so small when you stand in these places where these gigantic steps have stood. And she did that. What she also did is showed how intricate this working of assassinations is, because some of the connections she made, now granted, if you're looking for connections, it's the psychological perspective, you're gonna find them. It's like the whole number concept. If you're looking for the number 23, you're gonna find it in almost everything. Counting letters and subtracting numbers here and there, you're gonna find it. There's the law of numbers that everybody's associated with a certain number. So it's along that idea. If you're looking for something, you're most likely gonna find it, except, the love of your life. Because when you're looking for a boyfriend, you don't necessarily find one. You ever notice that? Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. But she references that in the book, and it's so weird. Like, all these little tie-ins with the other presidential assassinations, just really weird coincidences that you're just like, are these really coincidences? Are they really? Because there's so many to think that this is coincidental. It's crazy. But I really liked that she brought those out. Now, while she's writing this book, she talks about little areas where there's plaques that says, this important thing happened at this certain time 100 years ago. And a lot of people don't realize how many of those just little small plaques are everywhere. My town alone, this town I live in, I've been able to find at least 120. Okay? And they're not great landforms. They're not big statues. They're little plaques that says, this guy did this on this and date. And it's in a park or on somebody's front lawn. They're all over the place because there's so many people that were here before us. And I love that she brings some of those things out and also mentions the fact about how buildings get torn down because they're not historically important anymore. Like, example, the conspiracy house for Abraham Lincoln is no longer, you can't go into it and see the conspiracy house. You see a Chinese sushi restaurant. It's a sushi place. Japanese sushi place. It's a restaurant. Okay, so why didn't you preserve that? Because people over time didn't think it was important, and now we think it's important. We're trying to preserve all this history because it's disappearing on us. So I'm glad she brought that aspect in. The thing I don't like about when she's talking about being in the locations where all these things happening is the fact that she doesn't bring out the emotion that can come with it. You can be deeply moved by standing where somebody grand has stood before. I have been to Abraham Lincoln's home in Springfield, Illinois. I went there for a trip once, and the banister in it, up in the stair, when you walk in, you see a stairwell and it goes upstairs. The banister is the only original piece of the house that you can touch. There are a lot of original pieces in the home, but that's the only one that you can actually touch. It's the same banister that Abraham Lincoln touched. And so it's really cool to hold on to it. It's just like, he touched this. It's like the napkin that your favorite star throws at and you save. Because why? Because it means something to you. So I wish she would have just evoked a little bit more of that emotion into it, because I think she could have with the way she wrote this book. I really think she could have actually done that, and she didn't, which was a little disheartening for me because that's one of the coolest parts about being so into history and going and seeing those sites. The second kind of gripe I have with this book is that when I'm reading it, I really feel like I'm reading somebody's subconscious, and I almost feel like she's writing it as she's thinking, not really trying to make it flow nicely, just kind of a bunch of random thoughts cohesively together, and she never saw an editor. This book was edited, but it doesn't look like it because it looks and feels like a journal of just random thoughts. She goes off on a little tangents in here, which are great. They show little tangents about her and some of her trips and stuff, but they have nothing to do with this. I mean, nothing at all to do with it. So it's like, did you really need to put that in there? Really? Did that advance this along at all? I mean, it showed me, kind of who you are, but I don't really think it advanced your point of view with this book. A third kind of problem I had with it, and I didn't really think about this beforehand, but after discussing it with my book club, she doesn't really have a point to this book. This is a nonfiction book, but she doesn't really have a clear, concise, except I'm going to tell you about some trips I took that are so jumbled and whatnot, because she doesn't really make clear connections to a lot of stuff. She makes some clear connections, but really, like, why did you take this trip? Besides the fact that, it's generally understood people are obsessed with death. Like, what drew you to going? And what has that got to do with your political views? Because she's very, very forthcoming with her political views in this book. Extremely forthcoming. Now, this novel came out before President Barack Obama was in office, so she is talking under the Bush administration. Well, when she's writing this book, it was during the Bush administration. So she's very, very vocal about her political preferences and how she feels about certain topics that I really don't think have anything to do with it. She talks about her belief in guns. Has nothing to do with this, except the fact that she was happy talking about the fact that, you know, John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln with a Derringer. That was pretty. Because it's actually very pretty. It's actually a very ornate looking Derringer. It's not like a plain looking one. It's actually quite nice looking. But it's like, what? I don't care about your opinions. I'm not reading this book for your political views. I'm reading it because you went to all these locations and you're writing about it, and that interests me because it's a different concept. Because I've been to almost every place she referenced this book. I've been to almost every single one of them. Almost every single one of them I have been to. Most of these take place in Washington, D.C., and I've been there. I've seen a lot of these sites she was talking about. I've stood where she was talking about, and I'm just like, okay, what does your political opinion have anything to do with you standing where Abraham Lincoln stood when he died? Really? Nothing. So I understand this is her book, it's her opinions, but I think she kind of went a little overboard and they really didn't need to be in there, but they are her opinions. So now, what I liked about this book was that she actually wrote a book like this, because history people were like this. We do this stuff, and I like some of the little anecdotes she talked about, how she drug her sister along, saying, well, I don't drive, because she's from New York, so she never learned to drive, because in New York there really isn't a reason to learn to drive if you live in the city, because of, you know, traffic and everything, and like, there's really no point. So she never learned to drive, so all these sites she has to be driven to, so she cons her sister or friends to come, and they don't care, because they don't really care about history. So it's really funny to hear their responses to her, like, oh, look, this happened here, and they're like, I can just picture me doing that, because I've seen it happen, like, oh, look, hey, look what happened here on this such and such day. Jackie, we don't care. We're gonna keep walking, because we don't actually care. So, it's kind of, I felt her disheartening when she talked about it, but at the same time, it was pretty cool. I could relate to it, because besides her political views and everything like that, I am definitely her when it comes to the traveling. That is definitely me. That is what I do. And when it comes to historical sites. So, another thing I liked about this book is that she did use comedy. The way she delivered things was actually quite funny. She's very sarcastic, very dry humor, which I do appreciate and I like. And I thought she carried it very, very well through the novel, especially since it's about such a dark topic. I think she did a really good job of that. So I believe on Goodreads I said I gave this a 3.5, 4 stars. I can't remember off the top of my head. I apologize. But I would recommend this book to somebody who likes history. If you do not like history, especially American history, I would not pick this up, because even if you like road trip books, it doesn't read like a road trip, because they wasn't all taken at the same time. They were taken over a span of different times and whatnot. So I would definitely recommend this to history people, people who like history, people who appreciate history. If you want to have an appreciation of history, I would not choose this. Maybe later on down the road after you develop one, but definitely if you like it, if you like history and you like the dark side of history, definitely take a look at it. Pick it up, think about it. I read it, but one of the girls in my book club actually listened to it on audiobook, and Sarah Vowell actually narrates her audiobook, and she said that she's hysterical the way she delivers it, because it doesn't read like a journal, but when you're reading it, it feels like you're just reading somebody's journal, conscious thoughts, like I said, and delivered in audiobook, I think that might make a little bit more sense. So if I ever pick this up to reread again, I might try to find an audiobook of it, because she said it was a lot funnier, and the way the book is written flowed better with it being spoken to you. It was just random thoughts being talked about, and then it all kind of made sense that way instead of just writing it down. So I might try that. So if you're into audiobooks and you want to give this a shot, check this one out. I personally not done it, but I was told that it was a very good one. So that is my review of Sarah Vowell's Assassination Vacation. And you know what? It was a good book. I laughed. I kind of want to check out some of her other work. She wrote another book called The Partly Cloudy Patriot. I'm gonna give it I'm gonna maybe see about picking it up. Maybe not right now, but later on down the road, I might see if I can pick it up and check it out. See if it's the, kind of the same political oozing of personal you know, insults to presidential administrations. I'm not quite for sure, but I definitely have to be in a mood for those kind of books. But it was definitely something that I was enjoying. I wouldn't have picked up on my own. I would not have picked it up, but the fact that it was part of a book club, which was one thing I was looking for, and the title kind of intrigued me, I picked it up because of that. So all in all, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I did get a kick out of it, and it made me think. So, and I did feel partly. I like books that can make me think and make me laugh and draw emotions out, especially emotions that I don't get to experience a lot because I don't get to travel as much as I want to. So, but that's my review. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys later with my wrap-up. So, woo! 1 month is over, guys. 1 month down of 2016. God, the time flies. Oh well. On to new adventures. I will see you guys in the month of February. Bye.